For 10,000 years, humanity's beacon has burned across the stars, a light in the endless dark guiding ships through the warp and holding a galaxy-spanning empire together. But what if that light went out? What if the Astronomican, the soul of the Imperium, were to falter and die? In the silence that follows, the stars would grow cold, worlds would fall into isolation, and mankind would face a fate far darker than any Xenos or demon could ever deliver. This is the story of that end, and the final age of man. There is a light in the void, one not born of any star, nor forged by mortal hands. It is older than empires, brighter than hope itself, and yet fragile beyond imagining. This light is the Astronomican, the sole beacon of humanity, burning atop the golden throne on Terra. Through the endless gulfs of the Imperium, it calls to the fleets of the Imperium, a psychic flame by which navigators steer their way through madness and night. Without it, the galaxy is an ocean of storms, and humanity is but a drowning child. For 10,000 years, the Imperium has trusted this light. Worlds beyond counting rise and fall under its glow. It is how the Astra Militarum arrives before a world is devoured, how pilgrims reach the shrine worlds of saints, how the fleets of the Adeptus Mechanicus deliver the engines of war to the front. Every victory, every prayer, every heartbeat of mankind's survival depends upon that single, burning beacon. But imagine, if, one day, it faltered, if the Astronomican's radiance stuttered and died. No great explosion, no blinding cataclysm, just silence, darkness, the warp's tides shifting with predatory hunger, ships lost, armies stranded, millions screaming into the void, as their astropathic pleas go unanswered. For the Imperium, it would not be a single disaster. It would be a slow, suffocating extinction. And deep within the Palace of Terra, where golden light once blazed across eternity, there would remain only a whisper, the echo of humanity's arrogance, and the final proof that even gods can fail. At first, there is only confusion. Across the void, in the deep black beyond Terra's reach, 1,000 ships slow their course. Navigators open their minds to the immaterium and find nothing, no guiding flame, no psychic heartbeat pulsing from the throne. Where once the Astronomican roared like a star in the warp's endless sea, there is now a cold and alien silence. It is as though the universe itself has inhaled and forgotten to exhale. Panic spreads quietly at first. Vox channels fill with half-whispered reports. Chartist vessels drifting off course. Patrol fleets reporting impossible readings. Astropathic choirs screaming before going dark. A rogue trader's convoy vanishes between the stars, never to be heard from again. In Segmentum Solar, the Imperial Navy delays its deployments, unsure if they can risk the warp without their beacon. And still, from Terra, there is no word. Then the storms begin. With the Astronomican gone, the tides of the Immaterium surge unchecked. Great cyclones of raw warp energy bloom and collapse across the void, swallowing ships whole. Once stable routes between systems twist into deadly labyrinths. Entire crusades once bound for distant wars are flung light years off course. Some cast adrift into the black, others spat out into hellish realms where demons circle like carrion birds. Planets begin to feel the weight of isolation. Agri-worlds cut off from Forge World supply lines face famine within months. Shrine worlds once thronged with pilgrims fall into ruin without transport. Governors unable to contact Segmentum Command declare martial law and turn inward, fearing rebellion more than invasion. And still, the question echoes in every corner of the Imperium. Has Terra fallen? Has the Emperor died? Across the stars, humanity holds its breath. a civilization of trillions brought to its knees not by invasion or extermination, but by the loss of a single distant light. In the Imperium of man, faith is not merely belief. It is the very architecture of reality. It holds together a galaxy that should have collapsed under its own weight millennia ago. It binds a billion worlds to the will of a silent God. And above all, it gives humanity the courage to stare into the void and not go mad. But when the Astronomican dies, that faith begins to fracture. On Terra, the ecclesiarchy is the first to feel the tremor. Great cathedrals fall silent as the Adeptus Ministorum debates the unthinkable. How could the God Emperor allow his light to falter? Some claim it is a divine trial, that humanity has grown weak and must be tested. Others whisper heresy in hidden chapels, that the Emperor is dead, or worse, that he was never divine at all. The Inquisition purges hundreds of cults within days. Yet for every heretic silenced, 100 more rise from the shadows. Across the segmenta, imperial governors and planetary commanders struggle to maintain control. Without the guiding light, astropathic messages fail, orders from Terra never arrive, and the once iron chain of command rusts and splinters. Some worlds declare independence, convinced that the Imperium has fallen. Others descend into religious frenzy, executing those who dare question the throne. On certain hive worlds, prophets rise from the underhives, preaching that the darkness is a sign of the Emperor's rebirth, a new age rising from the ashes of the old. But perhaps the most dangerous response is despair. On countless ships and stations, men and women who once swore eternal service simply give up. They stop praying, they stop fighting. And when humanity stops believing, even the mightiest armies become ghosts of themselves. The Imperium has always been built on two pillars, power and faith. Now, with one flickering and the other crumbling, it teeters on the brink. A godless empire staring into an abyss it cannot name. Fear is the oldest weapon in the galaxy. It needs no armies, no fleets, only silence, uncertainty, and the slow erosion of hope. And now, with the Astronomican gone and the Imperium's faith faltering, fear spreads faster than any invasion ever could. It seeps into every Vox transmission, every failed warp jump, every prayer that goes unanswered. And in the warp, where thoughts and emotions become living things, fear is not just a shadow, it is a summons. The gods of chaos stir. Across the immaterium, their laughter echoes in the dark. Where once the Astronomican's holy light burned their influence away, now they drift closer, hungering for a weakened prey. In hive cities already shaken by famine, cults of Slanesh promise ecstasy and escape from despair. On war-torn frontier worlds, Cornite warbands rise from hidden shrines, offering blood to buy survival. Nurglite preachers spread plagues disguised as salvation, telling the desperate that decay is a mercy. And in the depths of the warp, the changer of ways smiles, for nothing breeds destiny like chaos unleashed. Imperial forces try to contain the spread. The Inquisition burns 1,000 worlds to cinders. Exterminatus orders signed without hesitation. The Adeptus Astartes launch crusades against demon worshippers, but even their might cannot be everywhere at once. And still, chaos spreads, not because it is stronger, but because it is patient. Because every lie whispered by a desperate priest, every prayer said with doubt, every act of betrayal born from fear, all of it feeds the great game. On worlds where once the imperial Aquila flew proudly, new banners rise, twisted symbols of the dark gods. And though the Imperium still fights, still clings to its old oaths, There is a growing truth that none dare speak aloud. Perhaps humanity's greatest enemy was never Xenos or heretic, but the darkness within its own heart. Even in the darkest night, humanity has always clung to a single truth, that somewhere, somehow, there is still a spark worth fighting for. And now, as the Imperium fractures and chaos spreads like a disease, that truth becomes more precious than ever. Across the broken stars, small groups of men and women rise from the ashes of despair, remnants of the once great Imperium, united not by orders from Terra, but by the will to survive. On a forgotten agri-world deep in the Segmentum Pacificus, a regiment of Astra Militarum refuses to stand down. Cut off from command and without warp travel, they build makeshift defenses around their cities and vow to hold the line against whatever comes. In the void, a handful of rogue trader vessels begin charting new routes through the warp, guided not by the Astronomican, but by half-mad navigators and untested psychic beacons. And on a dying shrine world, the Sisters of Battle continue their rituals under a darkened sky, their hymns rising defiantly into the silence where the Emperor's light once burned. They are not enough to save the Imperium. They cannot bring back the Astronomican or silence the laughter of the gods. But in their stubborn resistance, they keep alive something far more vital, the idea of humanity itself. They teach their children the names of long-dead heroes. They light candles in the ruins of cathedrals and whisper prayers into the void, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that someone somewhere is listening. And sometimes, those prayers are answered. A lost ship emerges from the warp decades late, guided by nothing but faith. An Adeptus Astartes strike cruiser appears in orbit above a world believed forgotten. A fragment of a long-dead astropathic choir speaks a single cryptic message across the gulf. The throne endures. These moments are rare, fragile, and fleeting, but they are enough. Enough to remind humanity that even when the galaxy turns against them, even when gods rise and empires fall, mankind's greatest weapon has never been its fleets or its armies. It has always been its refusal to surrender. Hope, once thought dead, begins to flicker again, not as a blinding beacon like the Astronomican, but as scattered embers hidden among the ruins of a fallen Imperium. And from these embers, something new begins to rise. Humanity has always been defined not by the strength of its empire, but by its ability to build again from nothing. And now, in the shadow of collapse, that instinct stirs once more. In the void beyond Imperial reach, forgotten forge worlds awaken their ancient machines. Without orders from Mars, they begin forging weapons and ships for those who still dare to fight. Small conclaves of the Adeptus Mechanicus experiment with forbidden technologies, prototype navigational arrays, psychic relays, even captured Xenos devices, anything that might one day replace the Astronomican. Most fail. A few succeed. Elsewhere, scattered chapters of the Adeptus Astartes form a new kind of crusade, not one of conquest, but of protection. They establish bastions on worlds too weak to defend themselves, forging alliances between human colonies that once had nothing but fear in common. Old rivalries are forgotten. New pacts are sworn in blood and fire. The dream of a united humanity, not under an empire, but as a people, is born. Even the Inquisition, fractured and leaderless, begins to change. Radical factions rise, seeking cooperation with Xenos, races once considered mortal enemies. Some call them heretics. Others call them visionaries. But all understand the same truth: survival alone is not enough. Humanity must evolve or perish. These movements are small, fragile, and often crushed before they can spread. But like weeds forcing their way through concrete, they persist, they adapt, they grow, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the galaxy begins to shift. The Imperium, as it once was, is gone, but in its place, something new begins to stir. Not a golden age, but a chance. A chance for humanity to redefine itself. A chance to prove that even in the absence of its God and its light, it can still rise from the ashes and burn brighter than ever before. The Astronomican is gone, the beacon that once guided ships across the stars, the symbol that once bound 1 billion worlds to a single throne, extinguished. For centuries it was said that without the Emperor's light, humanity would fall, that the Imperium would collapse into madness and ruin. And in many ways, it did. Worlds burned, empires shattered, faith crumbled, chaos rose, but the galaxy did not end. In the silence that followed, something unexpected happened. Humanity adapted. It changed. It learned that its greatest strength was never a single light in the void, but the billions of smaller flames carried in the hearts of its people. It learned that even without orders from Terra, soldiers would still stand their ground. Even without the Astronomican, ships would still sail into the unknown. Even without the promise of salvation, humanity would still fight. Across the stars, fragments of the old Imperium endure, some clinging to the memory of the past, others forging bold new futures. In some regions, faith becomes stronger than ever, burning brighter because it no longer depends on proof. In others, science and reason rise to guide humanity forward, free from the chains of dogma. And in many places, the two walk side by side, neither fully replacing the other. The enemies of mankind still lurk in the darkness. The Xenos, the heretic, the demon. They will never vanish. But humanity has faced worse and survived. It has endured the age of strife, the long night, the Horus heresy, and now even the death of its guiding star. Perhaps one day, the Astronomican will blaze again, lit not by a dying emperor on a golden throne, but by a united species that no longer needs to be led by fear. Or perhaps it never will. Perhaps humanity's destiny is not to follow the light, but to become it. For in the endless, uncaring dark of the galaxy, one truth remains. Mankind does not yield. Mankind does not vanish. Mankind endures. And as long as even a single human heart still beats beneath the stars, the story is not over. It never will be.